people to join before we start the session. Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, I think we can start. More people will be joining as we go on, hopefully, but we want to be on time, so we will go ahead. So, welcome everyone, and thanks a lot for joining us today for this second session of the Fostering University Enterprise, a UK Africa knowledge exchange on incubation and innovation. So, this is a course that's taking place this week over 4 days. Today is the second day. My name is Christina Dag, so I'm the project manager of the BIC Africa project, and I'm here today with my colleagues David Dagno and Chiara Davali from EBN. And to show you, so this is today's agenda. We have with us St. John's Innovation Center from Cambridge University. So thank you so much, first of all, to our speakers, to Richard Carey Evans, Tom Graver, and Stephen Goddard for being here today and accepting our invitation to present your university incubator and to share your knowledge about incubation and presenting your ecosystem to all of our participants today. Thank you. So to give you an overview of the agenda, we'll start with a short intro on the BIC Africa project for those who are not yet familiar with it and on the sessions. Then we will dive in with Richard and colleagues to the overview of the Cambridge ecosystem, after which we will have about 30 minutes for group work and discussion. So for this, we will actually have breakout rooms and we will work in 3 groups. Following that, we will have a presentation on St. John's Innovation Center, understanding a little bit better really the business model of the incubator and the ecosystem. We will have a short break of about 10 minutes after 1.5 hours. And finally, we will have a session at 10:40 UK time on the Innovate UK for UK innovators. After which we will have the final Q&A and then we will have the closing. So the session will last about 2.5 hours in total. So we ask you that if you have any questions during the session, please type them in the chat. At the end, during the final Q&A, we will also we will give you the chance to also speak up and ask questions out loud. But during the session, please, if you want to ask anything, please just type it in the chat. And during the group work and discussion, of course, we will be working in groups and interacting with each other. Right. So for those of you who don't really know the BIC Africa project yet, we will present it in a nutshell. So It's part of a bigger EU program called Support to Entrepreneurship and MSME Creation. So this program consists of 5 different country projects in the following countries. So Angola, Comoros, Ethiopia, Madagascar, and Somalia. Each of these country projects are led by different implementing partners. So in 3 cases, as you see, for example, Somalia, it's led by UNIDO. In Ethiopia, the project is led by SEQUA, and in Angola by IFC. The aim of these projects is to establish and consolidate business incubators, leading to creation of jobs and sustainable livelihoods. So in addition to these 5 projects, BIC Africa is a 6th one, and the aim is to create really a regional network to interconnect these 5 projects and also to provide additional complementary support services to incubators involved in this project, often focusing on internationalization, building connection also with Europe, with European incubators, and so on. So this is really somehow the mission and vision of BIC Africa is to support incubation, build innovation bridges, and foster inclusive, decent job creation via partnerships between the African and the European continent. Who are our beneficiaries? So we primarily work with business incubators based in those 5 countries, but also incubators more broadly from Sub-Saharan Africa. Our final beneficiaries are entrepreneurs, SMEs, and startups. So, of course, the final goal and final aim is to reinforce those and beneficiaries in the 5 countries and beyond. But in the process, we also work with a number of other stakeholders, such as policymakers, universities, EU delegations, business angels, and a number of other ones. So just to give you a few examples of what kind of services we provide to incubator managers and also other staff members. So we've had a lot of capacity building and skill development services, really aiming to share best practices in business incubation. We did this through virtual trainings as well as on-site trainings in each of the countries, which we called boot camps. So today's session really also can be considered as part of this virtual training center and capacity building. So we've also aimed to create better connections between European and African innovation hubs and also inter-African collaboration. So these included services such as soft landing and staff exchange program, whereby African incubators came to Europe and were hosted by European incubators for about a week with the aim to really show them how their organizations work, exchange best practices, learn from each other. And a similar program was implemented also on the African level. So, for example, we had an exchange between Comoros and Madagascar, between different incubators, so that they can learn from each other and also build a collaboration together. We've also had what we call quality assessment activities. So we assess essentially the quality of the incubators via a questionnaire to get a better understanding of what their services include and what are the areas, potentially areas of strength and also areas for improvement. So we've been doing this kind of quality assessment within the, again, 5 countries. And also there are other services such as connecting entrepreneurs with successful entrepreneurs from the diaspora. So again, here our aim is to build to enable African entrepreneurs to connect with peers from Europe, from the US and beyond. And again, enabling networking, enabling building connections, potentially mentorship. So yes, these are our core services. Of course, there are other things and services that we provide, but this is just a short overview to give you an essential idea. And a little bit on today's program, so the UK Africa Knowledge Exchange specifically. So why did we create this program and what are the aims? Well, first of all, it's targeted again at business incubators from the 5 countries. But as you know, the registration was also open to incubators from sub-Saharan African countries, as really we didn't want to limit participation. We wanted to keep it open to as many stakeholders as possible to maximize the benefit of it. The idea is to facilitate, first of all, peer learning and exchange to reinforce collaboration between African and UK incubators to create these links. So the sessions will feature 4 innovation centers. As I mentioned, we already had a session yesterday with the University of East London. Some of you may have been there. Today is the second one, and we will have 2 more across the next 2 days. The idea is for these certified business incubators to really share case studies, best practices, but also to have open discussions and for them to respond to your questions. So we have 4 main themes. First of all, universities as innovation ecosystem leaders. So how can universities, essentially university incubators, position themselves as leaders of innovation? How can they support really and nurture their students and student enterprises? Also, how can they support startups and scale-ups in their growth and also in securing finances and investment and providing mentorship for startups and scale-ups. And finally, also exploring different incubation and acceleration models. Also exploring what can be the different revenue streams and how such incubation and acceleration models can also be applied to your individual cases and be adapted to your different, let's say, realities and different ecosystems. So that's it. We hope that you can really learn from these sessions and connect with our speakers. And yes, so today is the second one. Tomorrow we will have another session with Coventry University, and finally on Friday with Warwick at the same time, so at 12 p.m. East African time. If you haven't signed up, please just follow the links here that we're sharing on the screen. We will also share all the slides after the session. And yeah, we hope that you enjoy. So before we dive in, just one question. Where are you joining from today? So we want to understand just a bit better who is in the audience. If you could please type in the chat your role, which organization you're representing and where you're joining from today, we'd really appreciate it, just so that we have an initial idea of who's in the room today with us and also how this can help for our discussions throughout the session. Thank you very much.
Great. Christina, is that over to me?
Yes.
It is.
Well, let's just wait a couple of minutes.
Sure,
Maybe
sure.
we will have some answers in the chat, and then I'll be very happy to hand over to you, Richard.
What I'll
Thanks a
do is
lot.
I'll just change the screen if I may. If I can
Yeah,
take over
perfect. Many thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Share, right.
Okay, we have Abdi Fatah from Somalia, Daniel Dander from Ethiopia. So some familiar faces with us again. Ghana, Benin, thank you so much for joining. Okay, thank you, Zelalem from Ethiopia. Okay, we have Matthew with us joining from Technical University of Mombasa, Kenya. Maria, very nice to see you. Welcome from East Tech from Angola. Okay, so I think again we have a good mix between some familiar faces from the country project and also from some other sub-Saharan African countries. Great, great, great. South Africa. We have today also Canto from Madagascar, Zafi Todi, another incubator from the BIC Africa network. Great, welcome all. Evaldo, I missed your message, so sorry. We have Evaldo from Angola as well. Great. Great. Feel free to still still type in the chat, but meanwhile, I think we will go on. So thank you so much, Richard. Thanks again to you and your colleagues for being here today. So I'm going to hand over to you, let you present yourself and let you dive into the presentation. Good luck and thank you so much. Enjoy.
Great. Oh, you are now muted. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear
Good.
you. We can hear you.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. And I just want to say thank you to Christina, to Dawit, and to Chiara and the BIC Africa team for inviting St. John's Innovation Centre to participate in this. It's a great honour. And I want to say good morning from a very cold but bright Cambridge. So you'll notice that myself and my colleague Tom are both wearing jumpers. And I doubt there are many people on the call wearing jumpers today. So it's quite tough up here. So I'm going to talk to you for the next around about half an hour about Cambridge and really the journey, and this picture describes it very well, the journey that this place, this very small city, has gone from being a medieval market town where all that happened was cows and sheep got sold, to a city where the evolution, the theory of evolution, the theory of gravity, where the structure of DNA were all discovered, where the home of artificial intelligence, where things really began. This place, this transformation that's taken place here is quite remarkable. Then also from this market town with all this scientific discovery, business has also come out of this. So, and one of the greatest examples being the company Arm, who started off in the 1980s here, and now their chip technology is in 99% of all the mobiles across the world, and they're valued at $170 billion. So that's what that small market town has created in terms of impact and business impact. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story behind that and how that happens. Now then, my clicker isn't working. Okay, so how? Oh, it is. Good. Right. So this transformation of Cambridge from that very old market town to what it is now is a phenomenon. It's called the Cambridge phenomenon. This is something that was started to be spoken about in the 1980s. The Financial Times was the first entity to actually to identify these cohorts of technological companies that were starting here, and used the phrase Cambridge phenomenon. That then evolved into a book, which I don't know if you can see my screen, but this book is a very famous book in Cambridge and in the innovation world in terms of understanding how this journey happened so quickly. I'm going to talk to you about the journey that took place from that market town to what it is today, and some of the factors in making that happen. Also, the Cambridge phenomenon is essentially a thriving ecosystem. And I want to explain to you what that ecosystem looks like here. Each ecosystem everywhere, each ecosystem is quite unique, and Cambridge has got lots of advantages, and it has a very unique ecosystem. And I'm hoping that you can see possibly some parts of this ecosystem we have here and think, wow, okay, that could work where we are, that could apply. So let's see what happens there. And like anything in life, nothing is perfect. So Cambridge also has its challenges. So at the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through some of those challenges. I think I do probably have a few too many slides. So I think I might I might sort of rush through a few of them. So let's see how it goes. Just to understand where this is, where Cambridge is in the UK. It's in the south down there, if you can see, just above London. It's part of what is called the Golden Triangle of the UK, which is Oxford, Cambridge, and London. Obviously, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a big competition between Cambridge and Oxford. We're very competitive, which is probably a good thing, which it keeps us all performing very well at the highest standard. But that small corner of the UK there is one of the most innovative parts of the world. It's one of the great wealth drivers and impact drivers of the UK and Europe. And what's remarkable about it is it's tiny. So to get from Cambridge to London is around about an hour. To get from Cambridge to Oxford is an hour and a bit. And from Oxford to London, again, is an hour and a bit. So you can see it's incredibly compact. And one of the big advantages that Cambridge has, one of the reasons the ecosystem is successful here, is because we're close to London. But I'll go through that in a moment. So if you ask the question, why are those 3 points, 3 cities, why are they successful? Why do their ecosystems flourish? What is it? What's their secret sauce? And essentially, the secret to all of this is research. And the secret is very high quality research. We're very fortunate in Cambridge to have the university. Oxford obviously have their university. And then London there are many universities there, but 4 leading edge research universities. Those being Imperial, the London School of Economics, University College London, and King's College. So that is the spark that generally creates this whole innovation system. To give you an example, in terms of the importance of research, over the last 3 years in Cambridge alone, £7 billion has been invested in research and development just in Cambridge. And one of the things I think you should really remember about this is that Cambridge is tiny. It's a very, very small city. There are less than 150,000 people here. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that in a moment, on this slide here. So we're zooming in a bit now. So now this is what would be classed as probably the Cambridge, a map of the ecosystem. And as I say, it is a city of 150,000 people. What is remarkable about this is that Dealroom, the data company on innovation value, they valued the Cambridge ecosystem at 220 billion euros. Okay, that is from a city of 150,000 people. The value of that ecosystem, that innovation ecosystem, is greater than the entire ecosystem of Spain and Italy combined. So that's 102 million people compared to 150,000 people here in this city. Which I always find quite a remarkable figure in terms of what goes on in this tiny place. So when you look at this map, I've pinpointed here a few of the key locations for innovation parks and incubators, etc. The city historically has been life science in the south, and biotech and pharma in the south, and in the north of the city in the centre has been hardware, digital technologies, artificial intelligence, and all these different technologies and know-hows create a fantastic melting pot, so that, because technologies generally don't exist on their own. They need other technologies to enable them to create impact. And that's, again, one of the advantages we have here. We have a diversity of clusters of technologies. Right, so let's have a look. let's move on. So I've spoken about the proximity to Cambridge, the proximity to London, but really, the Cambridge ecosystem wouldn't exist without the university. It has the greatest impact on this ecosystem. I'm going to explain that the university isn't the only impact on the ecosystem. The ecosystem has evolved and developed, and it's far bigger now than it was at the beginning when it was just research coming out of the university. So when you look at impacts in the university, apart from all the fantastic, the Newtons, the Oppenheimers, the Stephen Hawking's, Babbage, all the amazing people that have studied here and come out of here, there are 126 Nobel Prize winners that have come out of the university. One person, incredibly selfishly and very greedy, they won it twice. The university has created 12 unicorns, so those being companies that are valued over $1 billion. The university currently estimates there are 22 future unicorns that have come out of the university. So far, the university has created 846 startups. That figure was from about 2 years ago, so I think by now we're probably getting close to 1,000. It has created 12 UK prime ministers. And what's annoying, they're very clever, but they're good at sport as well. So they've got 80 Olympic gold medals out of the university, which makes me feel very jealous at how well it performs. So that is, I would say, the cornerstone of what happens here. When you start to look at the value of the university, again, there is always one figure that always amazes me when people put a value on the ecosystem here. And I'm going to give this example to you, and I hope it will ring very true. If you compare Cambridge University to the Premier League, what you will notice is that obviously the Premier League, global brand, it's probably one of the most famous things out of the UK, probably the Premier League. But when you look at it in terms of their economic value to the country, it is still astounding. The Premier League generates £7.6 billion every year for the UK economy, which, considering all that is men or women kicking a ball, which is quite a remarkable £7.6 billion pounds. And that generates 94,000 jobs. And that is remarkable. When you compare that to Cambridge University generates £30 billion every year for the UK and generates 86,000 jobs every year for the UK, so slightly less than the Premier League. But what's fascinating about the Cambridge University figures is that every single region of the UK benefits from that generation of wealth and economic impact and jobs. So it's not just this region or London, it is right across Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales. They all feed and benefit from this ecosystem, from what goes on here. The next slide also always, as well, I should explain, these figures, they're not created by Richard Kerry Evans. These figures are official. The Premier League one comes out of an Ernst & Young report from a couple of years ago, and the Cambridge figures come from a London economics report that was also from a couple of years ago. So that's true. So one of the things that I have always found remarkable about this city as well is we have a weekly newspaper. It's called Business Weekly, not very imaginative name. But anyway, it's called the Business Weekly. And as it suggests, every week it comes out. And this is one example from a while ago of the front page of this weekly newspaper, where you have a biotech company being sold for $235 million. We've got a company there getting a Series A for 16 million, a Series B for 116 million. Cider, which is a company that's actually working in this building, raised almost $12 million. That is a small piece of the front page of this newspaper. Again, this is weekly. When you start to think about this, this happens every week. So these headlines, the front page every week has got these type of impacts that are reported in what goes on. So we are incredibly fortunate. When you look at it, I spoke about the Cambridge phenomena. The first time it was mentioned was in the 1980s with a newspaper article. 20 years later, the book got published because things started to really accelerate here. But then, to reach that point took a long time. This has taken a long time to reach where Cambridge is today. And if I look at some key dates in that, it goes all the way back to the 13th century when the university started. That was the starting point for this ecosystem. Then, 300 years later, Henry VIII, the king who liked to cut off his wives' heads, he created the book press. So the knowledge in Cambridge started to be published and spread to the world. Then we had a long period of time where it was academic study and very good quality academic study. But then a big change happened 200 years ago. The husband of the Queen, a guy called Prince Albert, he married Queen Victoria. He was elected to be the Chancellor of the university. The university had always studied arts, ancient Greek, Latin. It was a university of letters. Prince Albert had studied at Bonn University in Germany, one of the best science universities in the world. He came to Cambridge and he decided that the university had to start studying science. Now, then that was the first point at which things started to really take off. It was 30 years later, the Cavendish Laboratory was opened up. The Cavendish Laboratory is a physics laboratory, but it's also quite multidisciplinary. So that started in 1874. Since then, the Cavendish Laboratory has won 30 Nobel Prizes, which is one of the most condensed number of winners in any one point, I think, in the world. So that is really the point that the research in this city started to really happen and take off. It wasn't until a bit later that century that business started to combine with science. Horace Darwin was the son of Charles Darwin, the guy who he identified the theory of evolution. He started to sell scientific material from the university. It took a long time for the Cavendish Laboratory to then start to have an impact. 1953 was when Crick and Watson discovered the structure of DNA. That's had an amazing impact on all of our lives in making it better and curing many of our ailments. Cambridge Consultants was started. That was a consultancy taking the knowledge of the university and allowing it to work with companies all over the world with the knowledge that was built up here. There was a problem in Cambridge, though. I told you at the beginning, it was a very small market town. Well, that was a big problem. Lots of companies wanted to move here to make use of the brain power, but the building laws wouldn't let them do it. So they had to have a review of the building regulations here. And then suddenly that changed. And IBM, who weren't allowed to come here because of the building regulations, IBM moved here to Cambridge. Things then started to go crazy. The Science Park was built in 1970. We had the Judge Business School starting in 1990. AstraZeneca chose their global HQ here. And Arm, one of the greatest success stories in Cambridge, was sold for 20-something billion pounds to SoftBank. So you can see that journey has taken a very, very long time. And if I was going to give you one of the secrets of Cambridge, that secret is the word patience, because lots of that you can see that in the way it's developed. You can see that in the way that deep technologies, people have to be patient with them. So people understand them here. The investors are very aware of how long it takes a deep technology to evolve and develop. And those qualities make it very different from, let's say, the United States, where people are pretty less patient. Investors are less patient. They want immediate results. Whereas here, it's not about speed. It's about impact and getting there. Also, we are very, very fortunate here. And one of the key phrases that people always use about Cambridge is that it's a safe place to do risky things. You know, it's almost a badge of honor to be part of an early stage company. There is absolutely zero shame in failing. That's not a problem. And many people fail 2, 3, 4 times before actually they reach the impact they want to get to. Also, because it's a university town, it's very informal. It's very sort of high trust. It's not a business city. It is, of course, but that's not the first thing you describe about Cambridge. You would describe it as a city of knowledge, not a city of business. So the atmosphere and the trust here is very, very helpful to help companies and early stage companies develop. Also, we are very lucky. I mentioned our proximity to London. You know, it's very difficult when you're an early stage founder to take a risk, because if you take a risk and you start a business and it goes wrong and you live somewhere where it's very difficult to get a job, that makes it much more challenging to go and get that, to take that risk. Here, because we have very high employment, you can take that risk and you can still, if it fails, you can still get a job. So that's very important here. And being close to London, there are lots of jobs. The academics here, very often the academics become entrepreneurs. They become d'entrepreneurs. And Cambridge is full of people that have studied, been researched at university, and have then become entrepreneurs. The great thing about these entrepreneurs is that they understand the journey of innovation and technology. So often they will become angel investors. Those angel investors understand how to be patient. They understand how to help those early stage companies. And this is a continuous cycle where new founders make exit and become angel investors. And it grows and grows and grows as more angel investors join the group that are exited entrepreneurs. So here we have a list of many, very many of the entrepreneurs that have done that. What's interesting, we've got 1 on the clock. What's interesting as well is that we're very lucky here at the university, where we have one of the great university spin-out knowledge exchange organisations called Cambridge Enterprise. They help spin-outs. They identify researchers. They help them spin their research out of the university and into a business. They support them. They fund them. They have angel investors that are very close to them. They have VCs that are very close to them. So to 2024, Cambridge Enterprise helped 25 spin-outs. They had 469 patent applications from researchers working at the university. They approved 778 commercial and research licenses for technologies and research from the university. And from the companies that they have invested in since 2001, those companies have raised a further £3.1 billion in equity. So one of the great things about Cambridge Enterprise is that they are generous. Very often with a university, with spin-outs, they will maybe be sometimes too greedy with the researchers with a spin-out and take too many shares in that company. Cambridge Enterprise on average, take around about 10, 12, 13% of the spin out when it leaves the university. That gives the spin out a lot more flexibility for later rounds when it needs to raise more investment. So this is the spin out numbers here from Cambridge and Oxford. And actually Oxford, the spin out office at Oxford takes a far higher percentage of the businesses. It takes around 23%, 24% of the spin outs, which then creates problems later on for those companies. So that is Cambridge Enterprise. We're very lucky to have an angel group in Cambridge, which is made up of people that are essentially from the city that are exited founders. They understand the journey, and if you are lucky enough as an early stage founder to have a Cambridge angel invest in you, you're very lucky, because they don't just invest; they will help you. They will work with you. The knowledge that they have gleaned from their journey, they will help you with that. And as well, for later rounds, it is a very important medal of honor to have that a Cambridge angel is invested in you. So that is the Cambridge Angels. One thing that my colleague Tom is going to talk to you about later, because at the moment all we've spoken about is really investment, but within Cambridge as well, there are lots of government grants that companies win. And Tom is going to talk to you about this on a later slide. I'm going to skip past this slide because we're not going to have time for this. But what I'm going to talk to you about now is I've very much focused on the university as being the cornerstone of this ecosystem. But really, now, in its very mature state, you can consider that there are 5 pillars to this ecosystem. Those pillars, the first one, and that key one, which is the one I just mentioned earlier on, is that research, is that knowledge, and all those skills that you need to make things happen here. Lots of it is from the university departments, but then also we have research centres that have sprung up here. We have Cancer Research UK, the Institute for Manufacturing, we've got Biological Sciences, the Neurological Institute here. There is a huge amount of research going on that's not led by the university, but by external agencies. Also, many of the world's leading multinationals that are carrying out research and development, they have opened offices here. So almost anyone that you can mention, from Google to Amazon to Apple, Meta, they are all here, and they are all feeding this ecosystem. And this is only a very small snapshot of all the research that goes on here. It's great having research, it's great having lots of clever people, but if you don't have that magic ingredient of money, you're in trouble. And also, it's not just having the money, it's having the money that understands the technologies and the journeys that those entrepreneurs are going to go through. And these are a selection of some of the funders based in Cambridge. There are many more. I've already mentioned Cambridge Angels, but these are very experienced deep tech investors. We're also very lucky because London is very close. So from an investment perspective, you've got all the funders here, and you've got all the funders in London that are very keen to know what's happening in Cambridge and find interesting companies. St John's Innovation Centre, where I'm speaking to you from here, Cambridge is full of incubators and science parks. So there's space, and there's all sorts of solutions for office space. Some of them are sector specific. Some of them are based on life science. Some of them are based on clean tech. Some are based on sustainability. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about Cambridge St John's Innovation Centre after our activity. There are lots of accelerators and venture builders. So early stage founders, very often, they don't know everything. It might be their first time they've run a business, but we are spoilt for the number of accelerators and venture builders that exist here that can help them and sort of fill those gaps that those founders have. And these accelerators some of them are world leading. again, sector specific. There are net zero, there are genome, medtech accelerators. Wherever you need to be, you can find an accelerator that suits what you want to achieve. And one of the other key factors is when you have those 4 columns that I've just mentioned, you have to have a glue that brings them together. Collaboration in an ecosystem cannot work without collaboration. You have to have it. To solve problems, very often that has to be done collectively. And Cambridge, again, is very spoilt for membership organisations that are sector specific, sector cohorts, entities that have events that share knowledge, that are ways for people to meet each other. And again, this is because people in Cambridge are very helpful. People are very generous with connections. So you have to go to these events, you have to build your network, and you make your connections, and people will help you. It's very different to experiences I've had in other places in the world I've lived, where people aren't so generous with connections. Right, I'm going to zip through a little bit now to get to the challenges. So one of the big challenges that Cambridge has is that we are fantastic at building companies. We have lots of early stage companies. We're very good at turning them into successful businesses and creating an impact societally and environmentally. But what we don't have in Cambridge or the UK is that level of financial resource to take those businesses to the next level. And any company that is successful in Cambridge eventually gets sold. And almost all the time, it's either an American, Japanese, South Korean, German. They're the sort of the large corporates come in and buy these organizations. So they never really stay in the hands of Cambridge. But, I'm afraid that's a challenge that we are struggling to deal with. I've got a whole list of these going on there, so I'll skip past that. Also, I mentioned to you earlier that one of the great benefits and advantages Cambridge has is our size. We're very small and we're very compact. But that is also one of our challenges because the city has grown very quickly with a number of companies here, the research, the educational side of things that are growing. So when you look at it, we have some really big infrastructure problems. We don't have enough lab space. That's being remedied at the moment with lots of new lab space in project, but that's going to take 3, 4, 5 years for that to really be in place. Office space is difficult. We at St John's Innovation Centre, we're almost always full. So that is quite a challenge as well. Public transport. This is an old city. We don't have a metro system. We have only just now, we've got a central station in the centre. We've got one in the north of the city. We've got one opening in the south of the city. But public transport is a challenge here because the traffic is bad. So that makes it very difficult to move around here. And that's a challenge. Because we're close to London, because there is a lot of success in this city, housing is a real problem, either to buy or to rent. So that creates a problem for attracting new talent to come to the city because they can't afford or they can't find anywhere to live. And amazingly, I mean, I've lived in Spain for a long time where it didn't rain very much. I think it rains a lot here, but we have a huge problem with water. We don't have enough water for the population growth that's going on. So that's in terms of infrastructure. In terms of business, recruitment is a challenge. There's not enough STEM, science, skill sets that we have in the city. We need to bring in more, and those infrastructure problems are a challenge for that. And as well, Cambridge is a very, very successful city, but it's also it has real challenges in terms of the distribution of that wealth and opportunity. If you live in the north of the city, there are certain parts of the city where your life expectancy will be 10 years less than someone living in the south of the city. And that's a real concern, that not everyone in this city enjoys the success that's created. So good. Made it more or less on time, I think. I think I'm not too late.
Yeah, I think that should be fine.
Yeah, good. Okay, so Christine, you nearly jumped in to say stop. Okay,
no,
great.
I wanted you to finish your slides. It was extremely interesting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Christina. So I don't know if there are any questions, or do you want to go into the groups, or?
Yeah, for the moment, there are no questions in the chat.
Okay, right. So,
yeah.
So the next part of what we're going to do is that I'm very much hoping that some of the things that I spoke about during talking about the Cambridge ecosystem, it would be good to see how you can relate that to your ecosystems, to understand, well, first of all, what is your vision for your ecosystem, for what you're doing? What's your goal? And trying to understand what those strengths and those weaknesses are. What is good that you saw in Cambridge that you think, wow, okay, yeah, that's something we don't do here. I'll give you an example, actually, because I give this talk about Cambridge to quite a lot of people. The other day, I gave this talk to the city of the University of Leuven in Belgium. They came here and they've been coming to St. John's for a long time. And I was talking about community and about sort of the importance of collaboration. And one of the people in the room, who was an older person, who was one of the people supporting the group, he said, excuse me, I must tell you something, that I came to St. John's Innovation Centre 15 years ago, and I heard your predecessor give a very similar talk. And I realized in Leuven, when I heard the talk, that there was a very important part of our ecosystem that we didn't have, that they didn't have any cluster groups. They had no entrepreneurial organizations. They had nowhere where entrepreneurs could meet and learn from each other. So he went back to Leuven. He set up the first university entrepreneur organization, and it's flourished since then. So I remember thinking at the time, wow, I mean, that is absolutely fantastic to hear, that there's something that we are doing that's useful to someone else. So I'm just hopeful that now that you'll see some of the strengths and the things that happen in Cambridge, and can that be applied to you? And if so, how? And then within the group that we're going to put you in, can you help each other? Are there people in the room with you that can help you solve some of the challenges or make use of the opportunities that you have? That would be the ideal. I'll leave this on the screen if you want. Would Christine, if I leave that on the screen as a prompt to the groups, or?
Well, I think we will just type them in the chat, because when we go to the breakout rooms, I don't think we can see the screen anymore.
Okay.
Richard, given that there are about 24 participants besides us, do you prefer having 2 groups or 3 groups?
I think, have we got Stephen on the call?
Yes.
Stephen's here, great. So can we go for 3?
3 groups, yeah. Okay.
And then what we'll do is when we finish the group, if a spokesperson from the group wants to talk about what was discussed and anything interesting, that would be great. So what time will we be finishing in the groups?
Yes, so in about, let's say 25-30 minutes. So maybe we could finish at 11:20 CET, which is 10:20, which is 12:20.
Okay, is that enough time to feed back the feedback after the? Do you think maybe it's so if we have 15, 20 minutes in the group and then 5-10 minutes for feedback?
Yeah, that would be fine too, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Fantastic.
Yeah. So what I will do is, yeah, so then maybe we can meet in 20 minutes back
Yeah,
here, right?
great.
At
Fantastic.
15 past.
Perfect.
We will now split you in three groups. Normally, you should all get an invitation or be automatically resent, and then we will also be joining you as the co-host. So I'm creating the groups now. You should normally be assorted. So normally you received an invitation, so just click to participate when you receive the invitation, please.
Okay, so how?
Richard, I think we might need to be coordinated. Which group are you?
Okay,
Yeah.
so shall I go to group 3?
Yes, so I didn't assort us, so we can each of you can choose a group, and then each of us
I can assign you. I can assign you.
Okay. Okay, so
Richard to group 1.
okay, perfect. Yeah.
Tom to group 2.
Perfect. Thank you.
Christina, how many groups you create? 3, right?
Yeah, three.
Yeah. Stefan,
I think most people joined. Okay, great. So, but Tom Graver and both Richard and Tom are in group 1, so that's not good.
Lemo want to.
Tom, move him to Salto.
Number 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
Tom, we just switched your groups so that you're not together with Richard. You're in group in room 2.
Great. I was going to say, yeah, me and Richard have just met in group 1.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Perfect.
And where do I go? Where do you want me to go? 1, 2.
Where is David? I'll probably go to group 1, maybe.
Group 1. Okay, Christina, group 1.
Okay,
Chiara,
and
you like to
Chiara,
go
you go
street?
to group 2?
Yeah. You send me, I go.
Yeah. Do you
Tom,
want me in group
can
2
you
as well?
Yeah, I send you to
can you
group 2.
join session 2, Tom?
Yeah. Yeah, let me do that now. Hang on.
I don't know why I don't see it. Hold on, I go here.
Is everyone back in? Not yet, I don't think.
Oops. There was a timer of 60 seconds, so I think
Right, okay.
yeah, they'll come back once.
Do we have time now for a bit of feedback from the rooms, or
Sorry?
do we have time for a little bit of feedback from the rooms? Because we have a bit.
So yeah, let me see
Yeah.
where we are regarding the timing. Yeah, I think we're running not that late, about 10 minutes late. So maybe
Okay.
a 5 minute, just a
Okay.
quick 5 minute recap.
Okay.
And Richard, there is a question from Daniela Sheber. Would you like me to read it from?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
He asks that first he's thanked for the presentation, and he would appreciate if you could share your experience collaborating with the Chamber of Commerce Business Incubation Centers.
Yeah. So the Chamber of Commerce in the UK or in our region is very much catch-all. So every type of business you can imagine is in the Chamber of Commerce, ranging from an accountancy firm to a big construction firm. It's very, very wide, the range of companies in there. We, in St. John's Innovation Centre, where we are here, we've got, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, we have a very specific area of the companies that are based here and the companies that we engage with in our ecosystem. And very often, the companies that we have here and we engage with, the Chamber of Commerce is not particularly relevant to them. The Chamber of Commerce is very much for more established business. But one thing we are working with the Chamber of Commerce on doing, because the Chamber of Commerce have something that the companies we work with in our incubator that they need. It is they want to sell and solve problems for established businesses. So we are talking to the Chamber of Commerce about having an event in the next 6 months or so, where we are going to have corporates that are part of the Chamber of Commerce, and we are going to get our innovations, our tenants, to meet them. And we want to try and create relationships between the corporates and the smaller companies. So that really is the big touch point, the big relationship that we have with our Chamber of Commerce, and that's how the sort of service they provide. I hope that helps. Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. So I don't know how, Christina, we had a good chat in our room, and it was interesting to hear all the different challenges that people have. And the common thread really was getting people engaged, was funding, obviously, funding outside the traditional World Bank, Africa Development Bank, outside those official channels, how to get maybe corporates involved to see if you can leverage them. That was also a discussion point. And we were talking about all the shared challenges you have across your different regions. Can you pool those challenges, and can you share them, because other people might be able to solve them in different from other people's on this call. And if you have a platform like that with all the challenges you have in each region, then you might be able to find a sponsor. The World Bank might be interested in that. I don't know. Those are some of the ideas and things we spoke about. I don't know if Stephen, if there's anything interesting anything to add to that, or.
Well, we have, but we have a spokesman who knows far more about it than I do.
Fantastic.
So I think if Siko can tell, because he has got the lived experience, he can add, and he's got a lot of great ideas.
Brilliant. Where's Siko?
Siko, can you hear us?
Well, should we start with Tom? Then should we just, and then Siko can maybe nip to the off the call for a moment. Tom,
Cool.
is there anyone from your or Siko there?
Yes.
Uh,
David, could you please do that for Siko? Thank
Yeah, you can enable his mic. Yes.
All right. Okay. Just having a challenge with the video aspect. It says the host needs to allow that, but it doesn't matter. I mean, audio is just as good. Yeah, we had a really rich exchange with Stephen in the group. Yeah, thanks again, Richard, for sharing all that's happening in that triangle that you showed us. Yeah, so yeah, and I'm based in South Africa, so that's where I'm based in, and I work in supporting the local entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem, in particular in the higher education sector, amongst the 29 public institutions that we have, and my role really is to support the institutions around curricula, the pedagogy, of course, the curricular development, and how we can infuse entrepreneurship in the curricula, but also working to support the students themselves in creating that environment that supports innovators or young minds who want to venture into enterprise. And so that's the space that I work in, but also assisting policy at a federal, national level, try to see how we could create policy that supports and encourages more individuals to enter into the innovation space. Oh yes, and then of course the link in transferring research outputs into commerce or commercializing research, looking at the third stream of public institutions. So that's the context. But as I was saying to Stephen, South Africa is pretty much a gateway, one of the biggest gateways around innovation and entrepreneurship on the continent. It is a haven for people who want to create, people who want to enterprise, people who want to launch, clearly because of the environment that has been created by the government, by the public sector, but not to say that the private sector has not played a pivotal role in ensuring that that environment is created. So there is pretty much a very supportive environment or scaffolding or a framework that supports entrepreneurs and innovation. And it becomes a gateway to other parts of the continent. And that's the beauty of South Africa. In terms of successes, there's a number of really great case stories or case studies around research in the sector, but also good stories of people who've innovated in the space. I'll take one maybe in the medicine fraternity, where we had the first heart transplant happening in the world, and that happened here in South Africa, for instance, and that was innovation way back. But it happened and it inspired a whole lot of innovation in the health sector, and that happened here in this country. So it tells you that there is a spirit of innovation or entrepreneurship that exists in this part of the world. All it needs really is further support, and perhaps maybe just a framework that supports how partnership happens. There is, in terms of challenges and strengths, I was mentioning the strength in terms of the research outputs, but also that research is never commercialized, and so it lies gathering dust in journals and university shelves, etc. There isn't that big step that then connects the research to real world challenges, and then coming up with products or services that actually address the issues on the ground. And then I think one big action that I think would be we should discuss would be quite crucial is around the mapping, just the ecosystem mapping of who's doing what, where, and why, and how are they actually doing it. And I think from that point, it then gives us a clearer pathway to understand how the ecosystem can be supported, where are the gaps, where are the successes, and what more is required to then support the ecosystem, not just in the southern hemisphere or the southern part of Africa, but across the continent. So I think there has been efforts, isolated as they are, and of course, not as extensive or broadly speaking, covering because we're a massive continent. But there has been efforts regionally in trying to mapping sub ecosystems, but I think there could be greater effort done or a greater push in trying to map out the ecosystem itself. And really borrowing from what you said, Richard, I think the only difference really is the culture, the history and the culture, for instance, that exists in your context has assisted in accelerating the space and the innovation and what happens there. Whereas in our case, that culture hasn't been supported enough, and so there isn't a culture that exists that borrows from history. Or that learns from history enough to propel innovation at the rate at which it's supposed to happen. And then I think just the understanding of value creation, how research, how entrepreneurship, how innovation really is about value creation. So I think there's still a big disconnect there in terms of how it's supposed to happen and why it needs to happen. And then, of course, just the general support of frameworks. South Africa does have enough resources and opportunities available for entrepreneurs. I think there's just a mismatch in terms of linking those that seek help and the opportunities themselves. But that's just the South African context, of course, and we are a haven for entrepreneurs. It's a more stable economy. There's better opportunities, and that's why you find a lot of entrepreneurs from the continent coming to South Africa. Not to say that that there's nothing happening elsewhere in other parts like Kenya, Uganda, as well as Nigeria.
Sika, that is fantastic, and really, and some of those points really resonate with me. And it's when you think of entrepreneurship, we have got an incredibly entrepreneurial South African in our team, who's brilliant. But I can't help but feel, when I spoke about the Cambridge and the triangle, we have that advantage of proximity, and that's it. But there, speaking to the people in our group now, there are so many fantastic things happening. There's so much desire. There's so much talent. That how can you, on the call and people not on the call within the inner world of innovation, how can you collectively get together? What is there that you can do to bring pressure on governments, to bring pressure on organizations like the World Bank, or collectively to do it? You have that feeling there's lots of people in lots of small corners trying to do stuff. Yeah. And listen, there's little steps you have to take, but there's also some big steps you need to take. And I think that point about the value chain is something that, for example, the UK government realised, and lots of European governments realised a while ago, and have invested very heavily in innovation, and they really see that this is a key driver to the future, because there's no manufacturing here. It doesn't happen very much here anymore. So we have to reinvent ourselves here. So that was really inspiring, and I hope that within the groups there were some relationships or some little sparks or some thoughts that we've had here that can lead that to happen. But I'm very aware that we're against with time here, because we've only got an hour left. We've got quite a lot to get through. So, Siko, listen, thank you very much, because I know Tom wants to have a quickly go through what happened in his group as well.
Great, thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Siko.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do a quick kind of whistle-stop tour then. So we talked about some challenges around the basic. The fact that a lot of business is expected to be conducted in English, and there are certain communities across this region where actually that's a massive challenge and a massive block for them. So yeah, Chiara talked about some of the various opportunities there. That there's some local support provided in French and in Portuguese in different regions. So that was useful. We talked about some of the big challenges being the lack of expertise in kind of coaching or mentoring to really facilitate a market launch, so that kind of later stage research and development. We talked about some of the key skills that are required there, so around market access, procurement, and limited collaboration opportunities, export support. And we also spoke about using Horizon Europe funding as a tool to facilitate collaboration with other regions or with Europe as well, and really raising the profile of the organisations that are on this call today. We spoke about some of the challenges around where there's a lack of strong revenue and stable revenues coming in. And that can sometimes lead to extreme, cases of staff turnover. So how do you retain that talent? How do you keep them when you're sometimes in quite an unstable position? So those are some more of the key challenges. However, I mean, there's lots of really good stuff here. There's definitely a very strong appetite for innovation. There's a very healthy pipeline coming through, and we're starting to see that translation from university research into entrepreneurship. Again, some of the challenges around that can be around the university leadership mindset and just making sure, you spoke about the long time to market in your presentation earlier, Richard, but making sure that the funders, the universities, are aware of that very long transition period.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom. That sounds like you had a really great group as well. I mean, honestly, it's been really great. There were so many great comments and great things that people are doing. That was really inspiring. So thank you very much. Now, the bad news is you've got another presentation from me now. So I am going to, because just to sort of explain, we've spoken about the ecosystem and some of the good things and the bad things that go on in the ecosystem in Cambridge. We've had a look at now as a group about individually, hang on, let me just put that to full screen. Individually, how we can, what those challenges are. Oh, hang on, sorry. Oh, right, there we go. What those challenges are, and sort of what potential actions are there collectively that can help overcome them. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to because I work for St John's Innovation Centre. That's where I am at the moment. John works for St John's Innovation Centre, as does Stephen. And I'm going to quickly run through how this innovation centre works. And there may be some things that are relevant. There may be others that not. But hopefully it'll be interesting for you. So the first thing to say about St John's Innovation Centre is that it is owned by the university, and Cambridge, almost everything is owned by the university. It's a very university-dominated city, and in particular with the university part that I'm talking about, the university here is split into 31 colleges, and those 31 colleges are pretty individual, their own management and sort of funding. And the one that owns St John's Innovation Centre is St John's College. So there are 31 colleges at Cambridge. That's a very beautiful view. I mean, you have this vision of Cambridge. St John's Innovation Centre doesn't really fulfil the vision of Cambridge, but this St John's College is one of the iconic parts of Cambridge. It's one of the oldest colleges. It's one of the highest impact colleges. It has had, I think, 12 Nobel Prizes through the college, 12 or 13. The meeting rooms, the conference rooms we have at St John's Innovation Centre are all named after Nobel Prize winners that studied at St John's College. The person that discovered titanium was at St John's College. The person that discovered the planet Neptune studied at St John's College. The person that drove the abolition of slavery, William Wilberforce in the UK, he studied at St John's College. One of the greatest romantic poets at William Wilberforce, William Wordsworth, studied at St John's. We've had great sports people. But in terms of big picture, so 12 Nobel Prize winners, we've had 7 prime ministers from St John's, and 3 saints, which listen, okay, you can have a prime minister, right? Okay, that's possible. 12 Nobel Prize winner, okay, that's possible. But the one that always amazes me is 3 saints, because that's impressive. But yes, so that's the college who own the Innovation Centre. And I always think, I'm probably the only person that thinks this, but I think the architect that created St John's Innovation Centre loosely based the design on the college. So if you look at the three sort of peaks, should we call them, on the college, St John's Innovation Centre has those peaks. Not many people agree with me, but anyway, that's what I argue. So the Innovation Centre was the first innovation centre built in Europe in 1987. It was based on the model of an innovation centre in the USA that was very good at taking spin-outs from the university, supporting them, and turning them into companies. The innovation centre, so in the centre there, you can see the innovation centre. That was the first part of this park. The innovation centre is for early stage companies. I'll go into a bit more detail on that in a second. They don't have to have studied at St John's College or the university. Many did. They don't. When they move in here, they pay rent. It's very flexible rental terms. They can leave. They have to give us 1 month's notice, and they can leave. So that gives that flexibility for an early stage company who don't really have a lot of visibility on how much money they've got, so they can leave very quickly. We work with the companies when they move in here. I'll explain a little bit more about that a bit later. We don't take any equity in a company that moves here. They're completely independent. The only interest we have when a company moves into St John's Innovation Centre is that they are successful. What we want is to continually increase and improve our reputation as being the place to come when you have some deep technology that you want to take to market and have a social and environmental impact. That's all we want to do here. That's what the college wants. Again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We have around about 80 tenants, physical tenants in here. We have around about 300 and something virtual tenants who use the address. They can come in for meetings if they want. We try and get them involved with things that we do here as well. So we very much community, but again, I'm going to talk about community in a moment. And then we have a designated desk space as well for very small companies that want to be in a room together and have that sort of collaborative approach to work. When you look at the other buildings outside the Innovation Centre in this map, they are for later stage companies. So those are the companies that have been to St John's Innovation Centre. They've developed, they've been successful, and now they want to move into a building. They want to take an entire floor. They want to take an entire building, whatever it is financially they can afford and what their growth plan is. So there's a pathway for a company when they move in here. They can start off with a virtual tenancy. They can go to a designated desk. they can take an office space, and then they can move out into the larger park. Just to give you a real picture of where the companies are when they move in here, I've got a picture of St. John's there to describe where they are when they move in. So a company, often the founders, they'll start off working at home. They may move into a co-working space. And when they evolve from that, when they want some office space of their own, that's when they'll move to St. John's. I would describe us as a loose late-stage incubator. There's no formal program of incubation here. But what we have, and I'll explain this in a moment, we have a team of people like Tom, Stephen, myself. There are several of us that are coaches and mentors, all past business people, done various things. We've got to a stage of life now where we're giving back, and we work with tenants here to help them on that journey. We help them on there to ensure they've got a strategy. Those business challenges that early stage companies have. Obviously, the big one, which we've mentioned a lot, is we do a lot of work to help companies identify what's the best way for them to fund their business moving forward. Very often, that is through angel investment or through VC investment. So we help those companies prepare for that and introduce them to people that will potentially invest in them. And then once they leave St. John's, they will move out into a science park, into a building outside, either in the park here or elsewhere. In terms of where a company is on their journey when they're at St. John's, POC being proof of concept. So when someone's at home, they're at that very ideation stage, very early ideation stage. By the co-working space time, they've got a minimum viable product. They may have started some early piloting. By the time they move into St. John's, there can be a little bit of piloting going on. Generally, traction, they're starting to sell, things are starting to happen for them because they have to have the money to pay the rent to be here. So there needs to be some movement there. And then when they leave here, that's when a company really starts to scale and they can afford to take an expensive space in a larger office facility. In terms of the funding journey of where people are when they're here, that early stage, that famous, the 3 Fs, where the people that put the money in to move from ideation to maturity is, your friends, some family, and some fools will give you some money. By the time they moved into St. John's, they've probably raised some pre-seed funding, enough money just to get themselves moving forward. When they're at St. John's, generally, we help a company raise seed funding for those companies. And by the time a company has is looking to raise Series A, B, or C, that's when they're gone. They're out of here. They're scaling. St. John's Innovation Centre is no longer right for them. What runs right alongside that the whole way through is grant funding. And this is something that I did mention briefly in my presentation. Tom's going to go into more detail. And I can't help but feel that you as a group collectively can put pressure on those that need to have pressure put on them to help you with grants, to ensure that there is a supply of grants for them, for the best projects to help them fund their idea to take them forward. In the UK, there are essentially 2 main sources of grant funding. Innovate UK, which Tom's going to talk about later, and Horizon Europe, which Tom spoke about briefly earlier. So regards St. John's, I'm trying to think what I haven't told you here now, really. So there's 95 units. Often units get put together. So we've got around 80 actual physical tenants. It's open 24/7, 7 days a week. Got 2 cafes here. Lots of communal areas. Got a nice garden, outdoor gym. So one of the key things about St. John's is that I was trying to describe it. We're in the Cambridge ecosystem where there are certain behaviours that go on and certain things that happen. St. John's really is almost like an ecosystem within the ecosystem. Those same behaviours that go on in Cambridge of collaboration and help and support, we try and replicate here as much as we can for the benefit of the companies that are that are tenants here. So we have lots of things to bring people together. Lots of networking events. We want to impart knowledge. We understand the tenants in here. We know the sort of things they need to know. So we bring people in to tell them or to help them with that knowledge. We have drop-in clinics where we bring stakeholders in who can, again, impart knowledge. But we have lots of social events as well. We want people, when they move into St. John's, to know each other. Because when they know each other and they're comfortable with each other, things can happen. That's when collaboration happens. And there's lots of cases of tenants working together, using their different skill sets to solve problems. So that for us is a healthy innovation centre. These are the teams that are based here. We've got a reception team there. We've got the facilities team that look after everything here. The innovation and growth team, which is Tom, Stephen and myself that work and support the tenants. We've got the conference and catering team. So we have external events. So that needs to be to the conferencing that goes on here from people that come from externally. Also, tenants have events here, all need to be catered for. The finance team, maintenance, and the senior leadership team. That's what the structure of what runs this place is. Now then, we can't exist without profit. And the sort of the 4 profit centres we have, obviously, people pay rent. There are support services that people pay for extra things through at the reception, through printing, etc. Virtual tenancies is considered a fund there in support services. Conferencing and catering, again, is another source of revenue. And then innovation and growth, the team that Tom and myself in, we work for free when you're a tenant here at St. John's. That's included in your rent. But we also we carry out external projects for third parties. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But that's something that we do as a charge service to external agencies. This is the team that Tom and myself and Stephen are part of. Very handsome bunch. And the profile of these people, generally speaking, everyone is an exited entrepreneur. And we're at a stage of life where we're giving back a bit. We want to help companies. That's what makes us excited, or to get us out of bed in the morning, is to see the companies we work with progressing. So I'm not going to go through this because I'm very aware of time. But these are just lots of examples of companies at St. John's that have progressed. They've been bought out, and this is really why Tom, myself, Stephen, that's why we do our job. This is what gets us excited. When one of our companies gets invested in, gets a grant that we've helped them get, or gets bought because we've got them into a situation where they are really attractive to other companies. So yeah, this is just companies based here that have done very well. Regards generally raising investment, and have progressed. And this is all in the last 2 years. This was one of the big successes in the last couple of years. This company, Forefront, this is a semiconductor technology. They raised 6.7 million at the beginning of last year, so 2025, and then at the end of 2025, they got their Series A, 16 million. And Tom is but Tom is the person that works with Forefront, so he deserves a pat on the back for that. And then historically we've had some great companies through that have moved on. Alston is a company that detects cancer through your breath. They're a very successful, great Cambridge success story. They started off their journey here. Pragmatic, the big semiconductor company in the UK, they didn't start their journey here, but they spent time here on their journey. And Autonomy, which is one of the great Cambridge success stories, they started off in a small office here, and they were eventually bought by Hewlett Packard for 11.7 billion. So that's just a little bit about why we exist and the sorts of companies that we try and ensure are successful. Right, so the Innovation and Growth team, we carry out projects. So we work with tenants here, but we also carry out external projects. So we carry out projects, for example, for the Royal Academy of Engineering. We do the Global Fellowship Program for them. We sort of do the training, we do the coaching and mentoring. I remember last year working with an exceptional entrepreneur from Uganda that had got a fellowship on the Enterprise Hub at the Royal Academy of Engineering. He applied for it. He received, I think, something like, I don't know if it was £60,000 in funding. And I worked with him for about 5-6 months, and really successful. So if you've got companies that you think might be interested in the Royal Academy of Engineering, they do have a global fellowship program that is exceptional. So that's one worth thinking about. Right, so as an innovation centre, that is essentially what our strategy are and objectives. It's a business plan on a page. And it's a little bit what we were talking about earlier in the activity, about what your vision is. This page talks through our vision. Everything that we do at St John's has to benefit Cambridge, the tenants. It has to be reputationally sound for the university, for St John's College. And it's about doing the right thing. We just try and do the right thing. That is a simple rule that guides us. This is an interesting one, probably one you've never come across before. This goes into the detail of our relationship with the college. So the college, with this image over here, the college receives all the investment, all the funds from the tenancies from the centre. I work for St John's College Limited. We are a company that the college has created to carry out all the other services, and we are self-funding. So that's why we have to make a profit to pay for ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist, which is why we, as the Innovation and Growth team, we do external projects. We have the catering and the hospitality services here. We have to seek funding to do all that, to do the work that we do, because the college don't pay for that. So that's that. We have a. I'm not going to go through the detail of this. These are what we take as our valued behaviours of how we do things, and this guides everything really. So that's something that's useful for an organisation to draw up and collectively agree, if that's something that you would like to consider. Right, good. I don't know. I think I've probably overrun a little bit there, so I apologise. I don't know if Christina, you want to take a break if there's a question, or you want to leave questions for right to the end, till after Tom's next talk.
Yeah, as you prefer. Maybe we could have a few questions. Just I wanted to clarify as well. So the legal entity for you is the same as St. John's College. You're not really a separate legal entity.
So yes, okay. So St. John's College is the university. St. John's College Limited is a separate entity owned by the college,
right? That
runs St. John's Innovation Centre.
Okay, so, and you don't receive direct funding from the...
No.
Right.
Well, we get the management fee, don't we, Richard? So that's the money that we'll get.
Well, so we do, yes. So, sorry, the college pay us a management fee to manage the place, but then all the extended services that we provide, so the team that Tom and myself are in, we have to self-fund our team.
Yeah, so essentially you're self-sustainable. I mean, you don't rely too much on the...
And then every year, us as a company, we make zero profit. Every year, if we do make a profit, it always is paid over to the college. So every year we start from zero, which is a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there is a question in the chat as well saying, can Richard elaborate more on their self-sustaining model?
Yeah, so that essentially we have to find projects and those projects need to fulfill our mission. So those projects need to have a benefit for tenants. they need to have a benefit for Cambridge. We can't do projects, or there can have a social aspect to it, which will be beneficial for the college. But we can't do projects simply for financial gain that don't benefit what our mission is. Yeah. So that is
right. Thank you so much. I think perhaps we could take like a 5-10 minute break, maybe be back at 5 past 12 here, Central European time, so 5 past the hour. And then we could continue. Richard, Tom, if that's fine with you.
Yeah, I'm happy to shorten my piece. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we could have your session and then a final, let's say, short Q&A so that we finish more or less on time.
Yeah.
Okay,
fantastic.
great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant.
So
See you in a minute. Bye-bye.
see you in a minute. Bye.
Thank you. If there's anyone there, can I just check? Can you see my slides okay?
No.
Ah, what are you
I
looking at?
can.
I'm joking. Yes, I can
All
see it.
right. Scared me then. Good. And you can see full screen, not the presenter mode.
No, it's
No,
perfect. It's
just
perfect.
Yeah. Good, good. There we go.
So yeah, well, we're hoping, Tom, you're going to share a copy of a picture of your new puppy. Chiara,
Yes.
Tom's got a beautiful new dog, and yeah, but
I've just had to do a bit of a mad dash actually down to but yeah, no, he's fast asleep, so we're all good.
good, okay.
Yeah.
But no, they're a really impressive bunch. You know, really great, doing some fantastic things. So I hope this is useful.
And it's a really good learning experience for us as well, isn't it, to hear more
totally.
about what's going on in various parts of Africa. So no, it's been really interesting.
Yeah, totally.
Do you have like I don't know, research innovation programs with other African universities or something like this at St. John's?
No, we've done work with Libya a long time. That was a consultancy project, wasn't it, Tom? About 4 years ago, probably.
I think we did something even further back with Ethiopia, I think, off the top of my head as well. But I mean, yeah, nothing recently. We do work quite closely with the Centre for Global Equality in Cambridge that do a lot of work in Africa.
Yeah.
So that's been our touch point.
Very often when we have a company or a solution that really solves an African problem, what we'll do is we'll get them in touch with the Centre for Global Equality, and I think they work with innovation centres in Ethiopia and Tanzania. I don't know which ones specifically they are. You know, for example, they've got a farm where they can pilot agri-tech and agricultural solutions, and again, they're owned by the university. They're a not-for-profit organisation. They're just driven by impact, and it's great. So we'd like to do more, wouldn't we? I mean, Tom, it's something that we definitely would. I know Kirsten was involved with the Female Entrepreneurs program about 2 years ago, and she really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And we have been putting in some bids for Horizon Europe projects as well. So, you know, if there's anything like that comes through, we'd definitely be interested in being a part of that.
Right. Tom and Richard, if I for you, maybe you could just share at the end of the session your email addresses or LinkedIn profile in the chat.
Yes, Tom.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Okay. And so Joel in the chat said it will be interesting to program a learning expedition for startup program managers from Africa. Well, actually, our soft landing program in BIC Africa was targeting that. So as said, we had some business incubators visiting similar organizations in Europe. So for Angolans, it was in Portugal. For French-speaking countries like Madagascar and Comoros, it was in France. But it is limited to the 5 countries that we're working in. Yeah, but we've experienced that we had a lot of positive feedback on it because people really it enabled them to also build a further collaboration and really to understand and see live how incubators run in Europe as well. And also the other way around. It's always interesting for Europeans to learn about ecosystems in Africa as you just mentioned, Richard and Tom.
Yeah, I'm sharing the twinning program by the Africa European Innovation Platform, because this is also an opportunity that was piloted in the past. This is one-to-one, I think. And BIC Africa is a partner, a stakeholder of this platform, and also IBN is a partner. So eventually we can put you in touch. And my recommendation is to really well think about, of course, the program helps this matching between organizations. But if you have already someone in mind, discuss this bilaterally, and it could be a good way to start this type of exchanges through the twinning program.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks a lot, Chiara.
Brilliant.
All right, then, shall we move on?
Yep. Do we have everybody back?
I think so, because now we're 10 past, so we have 20 minutes left, and then we can wrap up. Thank you.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks, Christina. Richard has given you an overview of St John's Innovation Centre and Cambridge. What I'm now about to do is talk to you a bit about some of the wider UK government initiatives and support that's available in the UK. Hopefully that just gives you a slightly broader picture about what's going on and what some of the opportunities are, and also what works in Europe. So as Richard says, St John's Innovation Centre, we have an innovation and growth team, and we deliver across a few different external programs. Now, one of those external programs is Innovate UK Business Growth. Now, this has been set up by the UK's innovation agency, which is Innovate UK, and that sits under UK Research and Innovation. Now, UK Research and Innovation is under a government department, but UK Research and Innovation, just to give you a bit of an idea about how that's structured, that provides kind of that foundational research funding across different research councils, but it also has a separate pot for Innovate UK, which is much more about commercializing innovations and product development. So this is just to give you a real kind of snapshot and a flavour of Innovate UK and how Innovate UK is structured. So you can see on this left-hand side, there's a range of different funding products that Innovate UK offers. So the grants, what Innovate UK have done is they take a look at the future, where they expect future technology developments to be, some of the key challenges, some of the key contributions and areas of expertise in the UK. And what they will try and then do is work with, they can work with ourselves, Innovate UK Business Growth, to capture some of the feedback, but also Innovate UK Business Connect to build a bit of a business case around the types of challenges that require some support. So one of those being, to give you a flavour, the biomedical catalyst. Now, we all know within the life sciences, particularly, there is a very, very long route to market, and those are very capital intensive projects. So there's a large amount of funding that's required even before a company is ready to approach investors to raise investment. So the biomedical catalyst is there to support life science projects. It's there to support medtech projects where there's hopefully been some, foundational research is already is completed. But what they're looking to do is now start to really either prototype, start to take things forward, so that they can look at things. So that's one particular opportunity. They have some regional funding opportunities as well. So what they've done is looked at the UK and looked at the skill set of various different parts of the UK. So in the east of England, as well as life sciences, we have a very strong level of expertise in agri-tech. Because there's an awful lot of farmland around us. So they have set up particular kind of opportunities around that. They also have a particular loan product, which is quite interesting. So they obviously banks are quite risk averse and tend to not look at these early stage projects. The innovation loans is set up to basically meet a bit of a market need. So that is available for companies that have some traction, they have some initial revenue, they're able to service a loan, but they're perhaps still too early for some of those high street banks. And also the actual interest rates tend to be much more competitive. Again, that loan requires a bit more of a structured project approach. So you would apply with a particular project. You would talk very much about the repayment period and what's going to happen over that period as well. So you can use it to fund that late stage R&D, research and development activity. Investor partnerships is a very interesting one. So at the moment, there's a very clear market need for support to incentivize new investment into companies. So although we have these, amazing angel networks, we have these amazing investors that are around. One of the challenges has been that some of their existing portfolio have required much more investment, much more capital, much more follow-on capital, and it's meant that it's been quite difficult to incentivize new investment. So the investor partnership is basically here to provide that. So that's a company reaches out to an approved investor for half of the project funding to commercialize their project, but at the same time submit a grant application, and that's to fund the R&D activity on that project. So it's quite a unique kind of offering. Just on this support side as well, just to give you a flavor, so Business Connect, they have deep thematic expertise. So, there's a creative industries group, there's a life science and medtech group, there's an electronics, a digital group. And what they're about is really connecting up innovators from all different sides. The types of companies that they work with can vary between, the part of what they do might be setting up a peer group to facilitate connections between those larger corporates in a certain sector amongst, the startups and the scale-ups in the region as well. The Catapult network is about access to facilities. So there's a recognized need that in certain sectors, it can be quite difficult to access the right facilities or equipment that you need to really bring your innovation forward. So that's where the Catapult network is brought in. So there's a cell and gene therapy Catapult, for example, which have both the facilities and the knowledge to take the company forward. There's a space Catapult. There's quite a range of different ones there. And then where myself and Richard sit at St John's Innovation Centre is this Innovate UK Business Growth. So as Richard says, the tenants that we have in the building are basically a really good fit for access to this support, which is all, I'll go into it in a bit more detail in a moment. So yeah, this is just to give you a bit more of a flavour of the different types of catapults. You can see offshore renewable energy, high value manufacturing. So it's all about facilities, knowledge, expertise to take the idea, the project forward. In terms of Innovate UK Business Growth itself, there's three kind of core pillars that we deliver against. So that can be around innovation management. Now that also includes intellectual property, ensuring that they've thought about sufficient IP protection. They've got the correct kind of processes, controls and systems internally as well to protect their innovation, but also to make sure that they have systems in place to facilitate future growth. So what we're starting to really see is that, real ambition and appetite for scale. So how can we make sure that, the fundamentals, the basics, that they're able to, communicate internally effectively. They've got a really useful CRM system, something like that. Funding and finance, we spend an awful lot of time on. So Innovate UK, as you saw themselves, admin their pots of grants, access to regional funding, economic development funding, access to Horizon Europe funding as well. And I think it's the same. We have a national contact point for various different Horizon Europe opportunities. And what we will try and do is really connect our clients up to that. And we also have this support that we provide around access to new international markets or access to new collaborative partners. And this is why it's great just to meet with, different regions, different programs that cover, a range of different markets, so that we connect our clients up to those when the timing is appropriate, and hopefully connect them up to your clients that you're working with at each of your different innovation centres. So in terms of the international markets, again, I won't go into too much detail over this. I think these slides will be shared with you afterwards. But that's really about the connectivity. I don't know if you've come across Enterprise Europe Network. There's basically, that's all around facilitating SME partnerships and connectivity with other kind of international markets, and that goes beyond Europe as well. The name is a bit of a misnomer, so I think there might be one team in Africa. There's not a massively strong presence, but they do have a presence obviously throughout Europe and throughout some Asian markets and the US as well. We host particular kind of visits. So we have programs such as the Global Business Innovation Program, where we take a cohort of 15 companies out to explore a particular market opportunity. So part of that, there's the JP Morgan conference that takes place in January each year for healthcare innovations, and there's a hosted visit. So these 15 companies will have a 2-day pre-visit training where they'll find out more about the IP landscape. They'll find out about the business culture in that new market. They'll get the opportunity to network themselves amongst the peer group, and then they'll be able to go out and visit. And then there are initiatives from the UK government which are all around supporting access to Horizon Europe funding. So one of those, being funding actually to support access to Horizon Europe funding. And that can be used to offset grants. It can be used to cover travel expenses when meeting potential consortium partners, things like that. Now, beyond that, we also recognise that there's a certain portion of companies that are not just growing at pace, they are very much scaling, and they're on track to become the unicorns of tomorrow. And that's where the Scale Up programme comes in. So that's very much about supporting companies to really grow at that rapid pace, whether it's access to, much higher quantities of external investment, whether that's around access to new international markets at pace, and the business development support that they're going to need there, whether that's making sure that they've got the internal expertise to really grow at pace, and they've got a really strong board of directors that can really help steer the company at that pace. In terms of the companies that we work with, they are all innovation-led companies. They don't have to have access to Innovate UK funding or even have an appetite to access Innovate UK funding to access our support. It's just more important that they are an innovation-focused company. They have ambitions to grow and not just be a lifestyle business. They need to be less than 250 employees, obviously, and would be looking for ambitions for 20% year-on-year growth in the form of either headcount or in turnover. And we want to see that the management team of that company are really committed to that growth. So they're willing to invest a bit of their own time, put some funding in place in order to support future growth and development. In terms of the delivery model, so the way that we deliver to clients is much more around coaching and mentoring. It's not about doing the work for them. So what we really want to see is kind of ownership over that work, but we will try and help them shape that. We will try and help them identify opportunities. We will try and help them connect up to relevant partners that can support them. But it's what we're doing is here to provide recommendations. We're not here to conduct market research for the companies. I'll just gloss over this one because I think Richard has already shared this. In terms of impact, yeah, I'll leave that with you to have a look at later. There's also a video case study as well that you can have a look at. I'm very quickly going to gloss over this, so do let me know if there's any questions after today's session. Again, these are UK government initiatives that are in place to try and support investment or support these early stage companies. One of those being SEIS, so the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme, and the EIS. Now that's about applying tax release on early stage investment typically from angels into UK companies. R&D tax credits. Again, most of our clients, most of the companies in St John's Innovation Centre really do make the most of these. It's a really useful way to offset the costs of those early stage R&D activities. And patent box, again, is quite common in the UK. Yeah, so they're able to, the companies themselves are able to access tax benefits on innovations that have IP protection. And that's my contact details and LinkedIn there. I can also put those in the chat as well. There you go. Whistle stop tour.
Very impressive, Tom. Fantastic. There was a lot in there, but it's really interesting to see the sorts of government initiatives that really help foster innovation and make it easier for people to work in research and development and then progress into building a business and then scaling it. So we hope that was useful. And if you can, as we mentioned earlier about that, there's power in numbers, and your ability to group together and influence decision makers on what needs to happen to help you is one of your strengths if you can harness it. Yeah, so I don't know, Christina, are there any questions, or how would you like to?
Yeah, thank you so much. Indeed, if there are still any questions, we have 5 minutes left, so probably just enough time for 1 or 2 questions. Okay, someone's asking to reshare your contact details. You just did. Perfect. Yeah, if anyone has another question, we have enough time, I'd say, for 1 or 2 more. Please feel free to just unmute yourself or type it in the chat. Okay, no questions so far. That's a sign that everything was very clear. Okay, no questions? Last call. Probably not anymore. Okay, well, then I believe we can close the session on time. So, Richard, Tom, thank you so much. I think the session was extremely rich in content. It was also great to have the breakout rooms, and I think to have that chance to connect and talk a little bit about the challenges that the incubators and other stakeholders here are facing today. As I said at the beginning, an aim also of this session was to really enable connections. So I encourage all the participants to also connect between each other and try to see if there are any synergies. And also feel free to reach out to Richard, Tom, and also ourselves via LinkedIn. We are always happy to support. So thanks again. Thank you, Richard, Tom. Thank you also to Chiara and David, who have been here supporting with the session. And don't forget, there is another session tomorrow at the same time with Coventry University, and then on Friday with Warwick University. So we hope that we will see some of you there. If you haven't registered, you can still register. And as said, we will be sharing the slides after the session, so you will receive them. Thank you, and have a nice day. Thanks again for being